Good evening, everyone. Namaskar to everyone. My name is Munish Chawla. Welcome to Jeevitam Part 2 Livelihood webinar 22nd. We have been doing these webinars for the last few months now. Every Friday, 5 p.m., we do this webinar wherein we invite eminent speakers and these students basically come and discuss their questions, their challenges for their livelihood. That has been our objective. We have been receiving overwhelming response from you all, and which has been basically the momentum for us too, which is giving us the momentum to keep continuing and doing this webinar every week, week after week. It's not an easy thing, to sustain this momentum and do it out every week, which is there. But as it is becoming, it is not a movement for Jeevitam. It is a movement of the students. Okay, students are now leading this initiative. In this webinar also, you'll be finding students speaking out, airing out their concerns, coming out with their questions. And this also, we have a college from Bombay, who is going to be participating with us in this webinar. And this webinar basically is trying to reimagine the way we the whole college placement process is being done in our country. That's the whole objective. We would try to look into when we are reimagining this college placement drive. We are asking basically 5 important questions, and these are the questions which we are saying is that because of this crisis, the colleges are closed, the students are at home, and corporates are not traveling. And when in this crisis, when this is happening, can college placement drive take place? That's the first question which we are asking. Second question we are asking is why the college placement drive only has to happen in tier 1, tier 2 colleges and tier 1, tier 2 cities. Why not in tier 2, tier 3 colleges? Why not in tier 2, tier 3 colleges, especially where it has never taken place? Another thing which we are asking, why college placement drive only has to take place for BTech and MBA students. Traditionally you have been seeing it is the MBA students and the BTech students who are take. Why not for BA, BComs, BSc students? Why not for diploma holders? Why not for ITI students? That's what we have been asking questions. Fourth question is, why college placement has to be only happening for the students who are graduating? Why not for first year, second year, third year students? I think these are the questions which we need to ask, because there are so many opportunities available to the students, who are in their first year, second year, apprenticeship, internship, startup-preneur, freelancer. There is so much they can learn today. There is so much which is available. So why college placement drive should not happen for the first year, second year, third year students? And lastly, and the most importantly, why this has to become as a tick box for colleges? Why college placement drive cannot take place month after month, every month, on a given day in a month? Say third Saturday, second Saturday of a month, there will be a college placement drives, and whosoever is interested in livelihood, whether the existing students or whether students who are passing out, whether even for the alumni, they can come and they can be participating in this college placement drives and find sustainable livelihood. Our campaign is for all the students, till every student in our country becomes Atmanirbhar. So that is the moment. Today, again, I would like to thank to the principal. I would like to thank to our esteemed panelists, Mr. Vivek Pawar, Mr. Raj Gopal, who have kindly agreed to be part of this initiative. Just a brief about Jeevitam. Jeevitam is a tech-enabled livelihood platform wherein we provide work opportunities to the entry-level workforce and the vulnerable segments. We have around 1.5 crore work seekers on our platform. We are working across country, across 1,000 pin codes, and we have every sort of profile working for us. We are, for example, partnering with Google right now. We are partnering with companies like IBM. We are working along with top 100 corporates. So we have every type of job profile is there with us on our platform. In this crisis, we have impacted around 1 million work seekers who were looking for work. Okay, that's what we have done. We believe in collaboration. We will believe in working with this problem is so huge and so important. We believe it just cannot be solved. So we work with everyone. We work with central government, we work with state government, we work with philanthropy firms, we work with corporates, We work with multilateral institutions like UNICEF. All wherever we are able to find, people help find livelihood is what we work for. I am very excited. I am very excited for this webinar. A lot of good questions. I'm happy with the students over here. Welcome to the students who are going to ask the questions. So looking forward to it. Thank you very much. Over to you, KG.
Thanks. Thanks, Manish.
लाइन में लगे स्कूल की लाइन में लगे एक आंख बंद किए इधर उधर ताकते, इसका मतलब शायद मालूम ही नहीं था। कॉलेज की भीड़ में दोस्तों के साथ ठाके लगाते भी कामयाबी पानी तो थी, मगर हम होंगे कामयाब ये सोचने की ना जरूरत थी ना मौका। माँ की नसीहतें और पिता के सहारे के बीच हम होंगे कामयाब के मायने समझना थोड़ा मुश्किल था। हम होंगे कामयाब का असली मतलब तो तब समझ आया जब जिंदगी ने हाथ छुड़ाकर कहा, ये तुम्हारी लड़ाई है, सिर्फ तुम्हारी। लड़ो, गिरो, उठो, फिर लड़ो, फिर गिरो, फिर उठो, अगर उठ सको। लड़ने ने, गिरने ने और गिरकर उठने ने हिम्मत तो जगाई ही, साथ ही जगाया यकीन। और इस यकीन को हकीकत बनाने में आपके साथ है जीवतम।
अब परिवर्तन लाना है, लक्ष्य को हमें पाना है, होंगे कामयाब एक दिन। होंगे कामयाब एक दिन, होंगे कामयाब एक दिन।
आइए मिलकर भारत को कामयाब बनाते हैं।
सरकार की सहायता रोजगार के साथ जोड़ करके नई इकाइयों के लिए सरकार अब योजना बनाएगी। देश में रोजगार के अवसर बढ़े, उस पर हम बल देना चाहते हैं।
होंगे कामयाब।
स्कूल की लाइन में लगे
हम होंगे कामयाब एक दिन। Over to you, KG.
Right. Hello, namaskar to everybody, all those in this webinar and also the hundreds of people who are actually watching the webinar. We have two eminent speakers amongst us, Vivek Pawar, the CEO of Deshpande Foundation and the management trustee there, and JK Rajgopal, director of JK Pharmaceuticals. So introducing them is not going to be easy because of their extremely high and invaluable experience, and it can run into pages, and all I have done is shortened it for all of us. It may not do justice to their life, but gives you a flair of what great human beings are made of. Vivek Pawar actually graduated from IIT Kharagpur and then joined Texas Instruments and was there with them for 15 years. He then started actually the Sankalp Semiconductors, and this company, if you go back and see the awards that it has won, the patents that he has created for himself, it tells you what if a man dreams of and has the vision to execute, you create organizations like this. Apart from creating Sankalp, being the founder of Sankalp, he has been involved in multiple initiatives. In fact, if you want to see grassroots change, Deshpande Foundation anyway has created massive change in the Hubli belt. And if you ask me, apart from being part of Deshpande for the last 8 years before he became the CEO, the trustee there, his contribution to civic society and the change-making efforts that he has had is just mind-blowing. Netra, a non-profit initiative he's been involved with. He does mentoring and workshops for entrepreneurs. And he has actually, he's currently mentoring about 10 plus startups. Apart from the Abdul Kalam Susanti Fellowship, but he picks up 10 standard students, grooms them, and makes them chip designers. And that's something which rarely you find when you look around the landscape of this country. People who are, what I would say, mitti se jude hai, who are actually there with the ground and bringing about the change. Multiple awards won by him, and he's been a board member for IESA. He's a founding trustee of KLE Tech, CTIE. He's advisor to the VTU National Academy of Skill Development, Government of Karnataka, and advisor to the Mindtree Learning Academy. So a man who is self-made, self-created, has created an organization and leading an institution that is bringing about change. Moving on to Rajgopal. Rajgopal has been a classmate of mine almost 3 decades ago in XLRI Jamshedpur. A nondescript personality who's a powerhouse of, I would say, perfection and leadership. And if you see he joined his family business of JKR Research, which has been at the forefront of innovation of the Siddha School of Medicine in terms of Ayurveda and also homeopathy. And they constantly evolve and try to find cures. And for example, psoriasis, vitiligo, and immune disorders. And I have been a beneficiary of it in terms of psoriasis medicines that his organization has created. He was previously SAP in his corporate avatar. Leadership qualities, leadership training, managing and mentoring people, especially his skills in the financial sector, has been just amazing. His goal is to play a significant role in senior management positions in creating and developing enterprises or existing functions of established enterprises that touch the lives of the common man. I think both Mr. Vivek Pawar and Rajgopal are completely involved in using their caliber to touch the common man. Thank you, Vivek and Rajgopal, for accepting our invitation, and welcome to the members of Cosmopolitan Walia College from Mumbai. Shobha, thank you for collaborating with us. I think the students and all students in the country will benefit from this webinar thanks to you and your team.
Thank you so much.
The postgraduate in industrial psychology from the Department of Applied Psychology, University of Mumbai. She also has to accredit an MPhil degree in psychology. And if you look at the personality that Dr. Shobha has, and I have been interacting with her for quite some time, almost about 2 months now, you find a leader who leads and demonstrates her personal abilities to a group of people under her and gives them the freedom to execute her dreams as well as the collective vision of her team. Such leadership in the educational environment is rare. And Dr. Shobha Menon, we are extremely grateful to you for having accepted to collaborate with us in this webinar. Moving over to Neeta Vaidya, who is CA. In fact, the dynamic personality who has contributed a lot towards the organizing of this webinar. 10 years of teaching experience and 4 years of corporate experience. She has a UGC NED qualification and experience in the fields of accounting and hedge funds and service tax. She's also been an auditor in reputed firms like Reliance Energy and currently is pursuing her PhD. So she has had multiple roles in the past, especially in the college, Chandrabhan Sharma College, Powai, and she has been a part of multiple national and international level conferences. I think, welcome, Dr. Vaidya. Moving over and looking at the entire team, Sanjeevi, Deepa, and Burhanuddin join us. And over to you, Dr. Shobha Menon, to introduce your college.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mohan. First and foremost, on behalf of Cosmopolitan's Walia College, I extend a very warm welcome to our speakers, our panelists this evening, because it is really a matter of honor for us to have people of this caliber to speak with us, to interact with our students today. Of course, I cannot forget, and I should not forget, the role played by Mr. Mohan, KG, as he seems to be fondly called by everybody, and his team at Jeevitham, because the kind of work that they are doing is amazing. It is truly the need of the hour. Thank you very much for coming forward, allowing us to be a part of this initiative. I take this opportunity to talk about my institution, Cosmopolitan's Walia College, Well, the Cosmopolitan Education Society itself was established in the 1960s, but the college came up in 1986, and we truly believe in working from KG, not KG Mohan, but KG as in kindergarten to PG, because we have courses right up to post-graduation. We are basically or predominantly a commerce college because we offer BCom, Bachelor of Accounting in, Bachelor of Commerce in Accounting and Finance, Bachelor of Management Studies, but we also offer BSc IT, Information Technology, and BMM, that is Mass Media. We have two postgraduate programs with us, namely the Master of Commerce, MCOM with Advanced Accountancy, and we also offer an MSc IT. However, somewhere around 2016, we felt this is not enough. We need to offer add-on courses. Therefore, we started with the Walia Center of Excellence, which basically caters to all the add-on courses that we offer our students. The idea behind having these add-on courses is to enhance their employability, to see that when they pass out and complete their graduation, they are more equipped to do the jobs that they will be ultimately placed in, because this is a huge gap that we find. We have graduates, but we have very few employable graduates. So this employability gap, we felt the need to make our little effort to bridge this gap. And it is with that idea that we started with the Center of Excellence, where we offer a number of courses. Well, the latest feather on our cap is that we are probably the only undergraduate college to have worked out a tie-up with IBM, where they're offering a program in data science and artificial intelligence and machine learning to our students. This program is scheduled to start in the month of February. And this is really, it is a very big achievement for us, being the only undergraduate college, basically a regular arts, science, commerce college who's having a tie-up with IBM. So with these few words, I thank KG, if I may call you so. Yeah. So I thank KG and Team Jeevidam. I also thank the panelists and of course, my lovely students who are here, who have, really taken interest in doing this well. I will be failing in my duty if I don't thank C. Anita Vaidya, who has been the driving force behind this particular event. Thank you so much. And of course, all those who have joined us, a very warm welcome from Cosmopolitan's Walia College. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shobha. I think great grandstand view of what's happening in Dr. Walia's college. I think what we have to do is we will quickly move to the questions being asked. I think I'll read you the first student, Deepa Bangera. Deepa Bangera has come from a family of 3 people, her mother, her elder brother, and herself. Her father passed away when she was just 11 years old, and her mother supports her family financially, and she considers her the backbone of the family. Her brother has completed graduation and is pursuing higher studies now. Extremely talented personality. Her hobbies include painting, sketching, singing, dancing, and also watching documentaries on horror stories. My God, I'll be scared. Her ambition is to support her family financially and work hard and lead a successful life. I think, Deepa Bangera, over to you for the first question.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Rajgopal sir, one of my question is, during the pandemic, how does one find a secure job?
First of all, a very good evening to all. Thank you, Jeevidam, Mr. Munish, Mohan. Obviously, you are doing a wonderful job from wherever you are. It's a great thing to be connected, and very happy to be with your students, Dr. Shobha Menon. Very happy indeed to have young people. I feel like a student for a short while. We were students many years ago. So I know how difficult now it is to face students. Okay. It's an enjoyable time as a student, but to face students, it's always we wonder how the teaching fraternity handles it. But as I see from the profile of students, it's a wonderful thing. Very good to see and hear Deepa. I think you've already done a lot for yourself in your life. You're still young.
Thank you, sir.
And very happy to see you involved in so many things, and you also gone through a little bit of difficulties. I'm sure all the times ahead is going to be wonderful. Coming to your question, how does one find a secure job? You know, the first thing that comes to people is secure. I think the word secure is a very relative term, because security is something that you should not be taking for granted in any circumstances, whether it is pandemic or all the good times. So in Indian context, people usually relate to secure job as a government job, right? But let me tell you, if you are sincere and passionate about what you're doing, and you're good at the job, you can always be secure in any environment, whether it is pandemic or otherwise. Therefore, I think if you're looking at external security, somebody to come and give you security, it is not going to be ever there. So I would only advise, from whatever little experience I have, that if you should give yourself 100% on the job, whichever job you take up, whichever job you look for. Don't look for external comfort. See what you can give to the job, and definitely good organizations, good people will always give you that security back, because you are contributing to the company. So that would be my simple answer to that. I hope it addresses it. Little philosophical, but I think if you live up to it, I'm sure you will never find the insecurity.
Yes.
Wherever
Yes.
you are.
So what kind of job will disappear post the pandemic, and how will new jobs evolve?
I think I would answer a little more about the previous job. People would want to know what is which is a secure company to work. I thought I should mention a couple of things. You know, there are two kinds of companies. One company which you could be very well-known company, so you know a little bit about it. Somebody else knows. Even well-known companies have their own practices which come as a surprise once you join them. So do always ask your friends. Somebody may have been working, some relative may be working, somebody may be known to you. So try to find a little more about the work culture and the kind of security which you would like to understand. Security means at least you should get your salaries on time. So very large companies do sometimes do not honor their commitments. So you find out a little more from your friends and people who can completely unknown companies, small companies, startups, see what their business is about, whether they are going to get their monies from the customers on time. And that's the way every company is going to pay, take care of its employees. So look at for the cash cycle. That's what I would say. Coming to your question of what kind of jobs will disappear and how new jobs will evolve. I think, first of all, none of you should be ever afraid that something will disappear from the earth. It will all come back in some form or the other. So the job description or the job definitions which is there today will get changed, but definitely the needs of human kind will remain, and therefore it will only change forms. So it is like, you know, a little bit of physics, matter can never be destroyed. So it will only going to change from one form to the other. Answering specifically what kind of jobs are likely to be evolved, let's take the positive side. As you can see, as the way we are now interacting, it's all through technology platforms. So a lot of things will happen around technology. This college of yours is into arts and commerce. So a lot of jobs are also going to come in understanding human psychology. how the people behave online, how they transact online. So transaction processing jobs will be on the rise. Digital influencing, digital marketing is going to be of a very big order. People are going to be influenced about their decisions from behind the scenes. So a lot of things. That's it. A lot of new jobs which are driven by this platform-based things like teaching. Online teaching skills are going to come. Even arts and music is going to come. So a lot of these jobs are going to definitely evolve. What will disappear will be jobs like agents, brokers, middlemen, and administrative jobs are going to be going away. So I hope that answers you, Deepa.
Yes, sir. Sure.
So great. Going still further with Deepa's and her fun facts about her, she's a person with good communication skills and a good listener with an adjustable nature. And the way she asks the questions, I think, to be very adjusting to the speaker, very, very apparent. Over to you, Deepa. The next question to Vivek Pawar from you.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Deepa.
Vivek, sir, one of my questions is, what are the areas where we can learn and earn simultaneously?
Okay, so it is not about areas. It is about, first I would say, a very good question. A lot of times people don't know that while learning, you can earn. There are two kinds of things that are happening. So currently, there are some companies, some organizations which give internship and then they pay the people, students, and also they can parallel learn. So I've been running one organization. I think you have seen in my biodata. We have this Susandhi Sankal program where you take 10th and 12th standard students, teach them for 1 year programming, physics, chemistry, maths, and then they work with the companies. With the Sankal was one company, Ion Idea is another, and then startups in Hubli. And they keep earning, and parallelly they were doing BSc. So this is one example, but there are hundreds of such organizations across India who actually give you stipend, internship, and you can parallelly do your degree, BSc, BA, or BCom. But that's one part of it. Okay. Second part, you should see that there are lots of, I'm sure Jeevitam would have on their database, many of the jobs which can be delivered from your hometown. Data entry, creating reports, doing some kind of analysis, customer survey, market survey. There are lots of tasks, it's called gig work, gig task available. Look at the internet, keep looking for it, and you can do jobs, small jobs basically. Small is called gig work jobs. And you can keep doing that and keep earning. But the most important is not earning. My request to all of you is that keep doing something connected to the market, connected to the job, so that you can actually improve your skills. Because what degree gives you is the sub-certificate, but not necessarily all the degrees get skills, or most of the degrees in India do not come with the skills. And skills are very important. A skill could be simple, communication skill, writing skill, reporting skill, kind of analysis skill, problem solving skills. All these are skills which you learn only when you do a job and earn something. So my request to all of you is that, I'm sure Jeevitam will answer this question towards the end. On their site also, they might have many jobs which are kind of gig work job, which can be task and paid task. But you will have many of them on internet where you can look for such jobs, take up those, and along with your degree, keep doing tasks and earning money. But more than earning money, you're earning your skills for better employability, better life skills, so that your career in the long run grows significantly.
Thanks, Vivek. I think that's a very valid answer given by you. I think earning, while earlier days, I think people thought that earning has to happen. In fact, let's still go further back. Decades ago, people used to earn and learn because there was no other choice, like my father's days. And then the times came when you had enough money to study, and parents sponsor the education of students. And we are back to the stage where students can choose and start earning right from the day one at college. So next question, Burhanuddin Bangdiwala and I have made mistakes pronouncing his name, spelling his name, but he has taught me and made me master it. So Buran's father works as an accountant and his mother is a homemaker. His hobbies are cycling, watching science fiction and inspirational movies, and playing or working on his personal computer. His ambition in life is to build a business or become an entrepreneur and contribute to society. Great thoughts, Buran. Hope to
Thank you, sir.
Run a huge company tomorrow, and I'll be standing in the line for a job. So the age will not be a factor for an entrepreneur. Correct. Over to you. Over to you.
Okay, sir. Good evening, Rajagopal, sir. My question to you is, which skills should a student possess during his college years to secure a good job?
Yes, good evening, Burhanuddin. Very
sir.
interesting that you have very interesting hobbies and wonderful ambition. I think this is the right time of your life to have such an ambition.
Thank you, sir.
The very best, and I'm sure KG will find a good job in you. Coming to your question, yes, some of the things were answered by Mr. Pawar in his earlier response. But just to recap, I would say the most common skill which is currently being looked up is good communication skills. You know, whatever you have to express, you need to be able to express it both orally and in a written form. That's fundamental skill, which is universally required for most of the jobs. I would say almost all. And I would request all the students to have a reasonable amount of general awareness. The closest thing that, I mean, the easiest thing that can be done to build that is definitely to read or, you know, either in a paper or, you know, either in print or on your respective devices, a daily newspaper. The general awareness always give you opportunities to build on what you know and what you can, you know, connect with people of different situations. And whatever subject you are choosing to graduate, at least, you know, whatever stream, at least one subject, one or two subjects have a passionate involvement. Don't end up doing a degree or graduation for the sake of it. Don't, even if your parents have made you do this or some situation has made you do a particular course, develop a liking for it and develop at least one or two things which you can talk in depth about or read in depth about. I think that would be the skill which I would say that communication skills. And then other things which are more relevant for today's work environment is a lot of analytical skills. Almost every job, including, for example, even if doctors today need analytical skills, they are bombarded with data. They are bombarded with patient data. They should know how to analyze it, how to interpret. Similarly, most of the businesses today, they have to take decisions on a lot of information data. There is a data overload. So you need to be very good with a little bit of numbers, a little bit of analysis, be able to interpret. So analytical skills will be there. And lastly, I would say develop, I would not say a skill, but at least an attitude towards handling things yourself. Depending on how your work, personal life has been, some of you may be fortunate to have good families who are constantly supporting you. So you may not be taking a lot of things, you may be taking a lot of things for granted. So learn to develop the ability to do things independently, don't work on support. So those skills will certainly help you in your jobs. So I hope that answered your question, Burhanuddin.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, I think communication is critical, as Rajagopal says, and the myth also is that, as Mr. Winston Churchill said, that communication has happened itself as a myth many a time. So unless you communicate well, it can never reach the audience and make them understand. So Sanjeevi is a third-year BA student at Cosmopolitan who will be asking the next question. Her father is a lawyer at the Mumbai High Court, and her mother used to work at the Raymond Group. Her hobbies include painting, playing cricket, dancing, and listening to music. And we have a future talent available. I think we keep watching men's cricket and keep talking about that greatness. We have a great women's cricket team too in India. And Sanjit, we hope to see you playing for the Indian team in the years to come. And
Thank
what a
you,
good
sir.
job in the corporate. You can do both.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely possible. So Ashish Balal, the Olympian, lives in the apartment where I live in. He works for Air India and also was a great goalkeeper for our Olympics in hockey. You can actually make him a role model and replicate his life for yourself.
Yes, sir.
Over to your question.
Good evening, Rajgopal sir. My question to you is how to make one's resume and interview presence stand out in a competitive job market from over thousands of applicants?
Yes, good evening, Sanjiti. Very happy to see your interests, and I wish you the very best, whatever you choose to shine in.
Thank you, sir.
And I suppose cricketers also make resumes to get a interview or a presence in some Premier League. So I'm sure this may be, and it is very competitive.
Yes.
Answering your question, resume making is a very important part of job, search or getting considered. First and foremost, I would say, be honest to whatever you are presenting. Don't try to build stories which is inconsistent with what you are. So I would say simple thing, keep it with a lot of truth and facts. And I think whatever you put in the resume, you should be able to substantiate it. As a part of running a business, I do come across a lot of resumes. And then when you interact with them, you find what is there in the resume and what the person is are completely different. And therefore, it is a disappointment because you shortlist on the basis of resume, you end up seeing a different person. So never do that. I think it is not just the resume, it is also the interaction post the resume that you will have to, you cannot escape. So please do ensure that you give factual, truth, honest opinion about whatever you are. And I think in resumes, you should not end up long pages. So make it brief so that in one glance, whoever is working on deciding on to choose you, they should be able to understand you in a very short reading. So a 30-second scan, this I came across in some interaction with a student who's doing his management and management studies. He's about to graduate. And he said, the resumes must be built with a 30-second scan rule. And the other point, which is specific to companies which look for, because when you mention thousands of applicants, so something has to be there in your resume. So look for, what they look for is a result, action, and context. So whatever your achievements, it need not be, only limited to academic achievement. We try to focus on the results and in what context you have worked in that, and what is the kind of action you took or which ended up in the result. So we are all used to very information based, like just saying I scored this or I did this, but try to bring out that element of you that is unique to you in that little achievement of yours. And I would say make the resumes tailor-made to as many companies as possible so that it doesn't become a general one resume for all kind of jobs. So if possible, try to put a specific resume for every job which you are applying for. Lastly, one very interesting advice I would say, some of our HR receives a lot of resumes from very funny IDs like Lucky 007, so-and-so, Dolly 123. I know all of you have pet names and pen names, and your personal email IDs are all generally revolving around that. But please do not use such mail IDs for sending resumes. It can sometimes give the wrong side of you. Try to create a formal email ID for yourself, and whatever jobs you are applying for, whether it is online or internally, or giving your mail IDs to in your resume, please make it as professional as possible. And I think that's what is it. I mean, be honest to yourself, be honest to whatever content you are presenting. I hope to some extent it answers your question, Sanjeev.
I'm sure it did, Gopal. I think what you brought out was be honest, and more importantly, what you said at the end, which might sound very trivial, but the most important thing. Just imagine those funny email IDs that people create during their initial years of life, and when they enter the professional world, that ID doesn't suit the purpose at all. So thanks once again, Gopal. Moving over to the next question. And Srishti, so just before we ask this question, some fun facts of Sanjeev P. He's a national level gold medalist softball player. He's a very curious person and loves to learn and discover new things. That's Sanjeev P. for you. So over to you, Sanjeev P. Question for Mr. Vivek.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Vivek, sir. My question to you is, what are the key factors to be considered while applying for a job, and how should one prepare psychologically for an interview?
So, Sanjiti, thanks for a very good question, and all the best for you to be in the Indian women's cricket team.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. So let me kind of give the perspective for the interview's point of view. So when I selected students for Sankalp, how would I look at them? So a lot of times people think that competency is most important. So my take to all of you is that we look at students' attitude first. And attitude is about how he looks at life, how he looks at failure, how he looks at his kind of successes. And that happens through the discussion. So when your discussion starts, and what we look at basically now, somebody who is positive attitude is very important. And when a positive attitude, I would say somebody who is not arrogant, doesn't look down on others, does not undermine others, does not take all the credit for himself for successes in the project or whatever he has done in the team player or anything. He gives credit equally to others and reasonably shares the credit with others. So positive attitude of the person is first important when you look at the person for job, because competency only doesn't make a person complete. It's a attitude plus competency gives the result. And if attitude is zero, competency is great, your results are still zero. And competency to some extent can be taught, attitude cannot be. So I would request all of you, start preparing from today. And look at today, what is the attitude, right? For example, first is basically, are you motivated? Self-motivation is important. Do you have a goal for yourself, aspirational goals? And you're looking forward to kind of that aspiration goals. Then you are self-motivated. When you are self-motivated, nobody else has to motivate you. And that will be great attitude to have. Second aspect of attitude is actually kind of accountability. Okay. So when you interview, when you discuss about successes, you talk about success and take all credit to yourself. And in discussions, your weaknesses or your failures, when you blame on others, then what happens? It is a victim mentality. Okay, somebody else did it to me. Instead of saying that, hey, I failed in this exam because I did not prepare hard work. I didn't work hard for. Or I did not qualify for this team because I did not practice hard enough. Then what happens? The interviewer starts saying this person is self-motivated. First of all, goal is there. And also take responsibility of results. Not just doing the work, but also taking responsibility of results. So it's very important for you, all of you as kids now. I learned very late in my career how this is important. But now that you know, you can prepare your attitude from now, take responsibility of your actions, behavior, and don't blame on others. And if that you become a attitude, in interview it will come out. Because remember, as another panelist talked about, when you talk in the meeting discussion, don't fake yourself. Be yourself in the interview. Because the other person who is interviewing you is expert. He has gone through thousands of interviews and he knows how to read people. So if you are transparent, best ways basically will be for you to get a job. So that's a attitude. Now about what else we look at it. So there are two aspects to looking, right? There is a knowledge and there is a skill and their attitude. So we talked about attitude is number one. And knowledge is last. So nobody wants to be knowledge. Knowledge can be learned. Skill cannot be. So there is two more things are important. Skill. And what are the skills important? So competency is definitely important. But what is to look in the interviews? We look at ability to learn. How is the student willing to able to learn? And those are the puzzles questions we ask, the trick questions asked, the interviewers ask, which are basically not based on knowledge, but based on the intelligence to solve the problems. And the third attitude, I look at the third aspect I look at generally is kind of a willingness of a person to learn. And I'll give you an example why it is important, is that a lot of times you might be wrong in one of the question. And it doesn't matter. Your interviewer will give a hint and then you'll learn this is the correct answer. And then you could have correct yourself. After 2-3 questions, if you're willing to learn, you will take the new learning and answer question based on that. So always it's important first, constantly have positive attitude, be motivated, have a goal, aspirational goal for yourself and work hard towards it and kind of having that positive attitude of motivation. Second is self-accountability. So take responsibility and don't blame others for your success failures. Don't be victim of others' opinions. Don't become victim mentality. Be an empowered mentality. Take responsibility of your action, words, behavior, and that attitude will help you during the interview. And keep learning. Keep learning. Don't be arrogant in the asking question. If you know the answer, you talk about it. If you don't know the answer, clearly make sure that you don't fake. You can clearly say, I don't know, but let me try. And when you're applying for the job, so this is my interviewing skills I have told you. When you're applying for a job, don't look at, we can look at the place, look at salary, look at position. All these are secondary because they don't help you in career. What is most important is a content of a job. How is the job? How are the career prospects of the job? Is this job basically going to have a good salary, but no learning at all in the job? Is it going to have a mundane job? You avoid that. So pick up 2-3 jobs. And out of 2-3 jobs, whichever jobs gives you basically kind of a more learning, more aligned with your strength and your liking, that will be a job we should look forward to. Now, if you don't get that job and you get a job which is kind of something which is not what you like, but you don't have any options, other option, then pick up the job. Because after degree, most important is the learning experience. Most of the time, most of the students in the degree don't get skills. They only get degree. And working on a job and doing very good is very, very important. So on the job, when you, like Mr. Rajagopal talked about it, right, a few minutes back, about what you should pick up and what you should not. So being honest and being transparent is important. And picking up job, which you like is great. But if you don't like, it's okay. Because if you have options, pick up the option and do very good in the job. Because there's no job which is kind of you cannot do very well if you are motivated to. Remember, most big companies, a lot of times we have students who come in and they talk to me and say, hey, I want to join TCS, Infosys, but I have got a job in a small company. What do I do? Should I wait for 1 more year? And I suggest them, generally there are bigger companies like KPMG and others. They take people who are experienced and very good in the job for 4-5 years. So why don't you take up an existing job which is available, a local company, doesn't matter. But learn the job very well, do very well, own the responsibilities, learn as much as possible. And once you do the job very well, whatever job you have, if you do very well, after a few years, you will have greater opportunities because big companies will actually start looking for experienced people and they will look for somebody like you who has been working on continuously on the one job, longer, hardworking, motivated, deep understanding, developed competency and skills, and then you'll get jobs. So first, don't look at salaries, don't look at position, first look at content of the job. And once, whatever options you have, pick up best job you have available. If you have only one job, pick it up. Don't delay too long. Fix up 3 months time and pick up a job. And once you pick up a job, do very good in your job. And I'm sure you will be able to succeed. The last one is basically, how do you prepare psychologically for an interview? The best way is be yourself. And it's very difficult to be not nervous. So just calm down. Calm down and say that if I am kind of worried about the results of the interview, I'll be constantly worried about the results and I will not be able to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So if all your concentration is on basically kind of just being calm and listening to the question and focusing on each question at a time and giving that answer to the best of your ability, if that is what you can focus on, you will be much better state to answer the interview. So that's the first thing, being calm, and don't focus on the result of the interview. Focus on the journey of process of interview. What questions are being asked and how I can answer to my best abilities. Second, don't ever tell something which you are not. Okay? Because we have tendency, if a customer wants, hey, somebody is good at some sport or somebody likes something, and you would like to immediately say yes, 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 and just say yes with the interviewer. Avoid that. Because Rajagopal talk about, right? Like in your resume, be transparent. Bring your strengths out. Don't tell something what you are not. So this is the same in the interview. Be what you are. Be transparent. Bring the strengths of yourself out. Expose. You have to showcase your strengths. Both the things are bad. One is showing off your strengths, showing off yourself, or undershowing. Both are not correct for you as a student who is candidate for the interview. Showcase your strengths. Bring out your strength that are aligned with the company. Companies, like some companies, like selling companies, they would like to have people who have good communication skills, who have good interpersonal skills, who are outgoing. Then you talk about, if you are a very outgoing person, talk example of what are the activities you conducted in terms of arranging people together, talking to them, what people initiative you have taken, what kind of sports you have played, what kind of events you have arranged, what events you have participated. So all these things come out, and that is kind of required for that company. Now, some of the companies are basically kind of in terms of BPO jobs, where you have to actually kind of follow the process. So figure out what kind of it really planning, good process orientation. So you have to understand what does a company need, what are the strengths they need, what kind of job they are doing, and fundamentally, what are your strengths? What are your strengths you can showcase, and what are the experiences that you have in the past, events, extracurricular activity, or what are the accidents in your life, which kind of bring out those strengths and bring out those qualities that are required by that company for that job, and showcase that. And mentally and psychologically, you are prepared and believe that you are the best for this job, but be humble about learning and face the interview with a pride, honesty, transparency, humility, and also humor.
Thanks, Vivek. I think very exhaustive answer to a question which may seem simple, but not easy to answer. Over to the next. Burhanuddin comes back, a man who has stumbled off a bicycle more times than a successful man has stumbled in life. But I'm sure that he has his answers in his life all chalked out. Over to you, Burhan.
Yes, good evening, Vivek sir. My question to you is, how does one should translate an idea into a business plan?
Okay. Burhan, excellent question. And being an entrepreneur and being mentor of entrepreneur, I can take hours to talk about it, but I'll give you a small example so that you understand. Because if I give very technical example, you may or may not be able to catch it. So let me take an example of simple example of a problem. So first of all, idea is not important. What is important is what problem you are solving. Okay. Because whenever you say something that I have idea, what problem it solves? If it's not solving any problem, then that idea is basically like a square peg looking for a hole, right? You're looking for a solution is looking for a problem. And you don't want to start a business with a solution which is looking for problem. So always it's important that you focus on what problem you want to solve, what passion you have. So I'll give you an example. Redbus, right? Redbus is a big 600 crore rupees company. It got acquired, and it started with a founder, Phanindra Sama. He is an ex-Texas Instruments, so my colleague in my company in Texas Instruments, going for a vacation, and he found that on the Diwali he had not made the reservation. He went to one place for booking buses. That person called 4 or 5 people, no seat available. He went to another person called 4 or 5 people, again no place, a third people. After going to all of this, he realized that if there was only one place where online, where you can look at and say, hey, I want a ticket, and it will look for all the 100 bus players, service providers are there, and tell him whether the seat is available or not. That will be a great problem. So what is the problem? There are seats there, but seats are not available for the customer. You have to go through an intermediate broker, and who is not having technology, so he calls phones, and many times seats do not get filled. So the problem is kind of getting the ticket in the fastest time and going to home, right? That was the problem. And he started working on a solution. So what is the problem? Then he started working with different people. So you have to understand any business idea is to solve a problem. Now, second question you have to ask is, whose problem it is solving? Is it the traveling person? Is it the broker? Is it the bus service provider? Then you will get to know who is your customer. Because any idea which doesn't solve a problem, doesn't have any customer, is a good idea, but not a business idea. It could be innovation, but no business can be made out of it. So very important, which problem it is solving and who is the customer? That's the second question you have to ask. So for this particular idea, bus idea, 2 customers, potential customer were there. One potential customer was the bus service providers whose buses seats were getting empty because they didn't know how to connect to the customer. Second problem of this bus was the traveler. Customer who wanted to travel and buy the ticket was not able to access the empty seats available in some 100th bus who is not able to have access. So that is a 2 problem. So you have 2 customers. Now depending on which you take as main customer, you solve the problem differently. So for example, if you take bus service provider as a customer, you want to solve the problem of service provider, then you go to a bus company and say, hey, I will do a software for you. You can load all your bus seats on this software. They'll be available to all your agents, and they can book it. And actually, they went that way. They initially started talking to the bus companies, created a software, and they went that. And then said, okay, one company bought it, but other companies were not willing to buy. And you cannot make a product company based on one company buying it. So they went with mentoring, and they said, okay, the mentor suggested, why did you do otherwise? Look at the traveling person as a customer. Okay. Then what they did, they made a software for booking the seats and available for the web booking. And what they did, they actually bought 5 seats from every bus company as an agent and loaded into their software. And as soon as those 5 seats got locked, they got 5 more. And this company went from actually kind of 2 people company to around 600 crore with 500 plus members company in another 10 years and got bought out, right? So I'll repeat again. So idea is not important. Most important, what problem you're solving. Second, who is the customer? Whose problem is solving? Third, is that problem critical for that customer that is willing to? Fourth, how critical is that problem that you will get kind of a sales from that customer? Then fifth, what is the idea? What is the uniqueness of your idea so that it is difficult to copy for others and you'll be able to make a business enterprise out of it. If you can look at that way, I'm sure you can make your business a great success.
Thank you, sir, for such a good explanation.
Great, Vivek. I think Phanindra Sama, who was also the ex-CEO Innovation for Telangana State, I've interacted with him, especially with Deshpande Foundation, the Hubli Sandbox. amazing man, and your example of Red Bus, perfect example to explain how to choose startup. So, Srishti, back to you. So, Sanjeevi, a very apt question for Rajgopal.
Yes, sir. Sir, how should one's mindset be while taking up and continuing a family business?
I would give a general answer. I would say, first and foremost, in your question itself, there are two parts. The word family, business. Family and business. First and foremost, you should understand family is different, business is different. Okay? Most of the mindset issues come only because we tend to mix up family and the business part of it. So I think to be very clear for you, whoever is having this opportunity, I would say, to continue on the family business, there should be completely different compartmentalization of what you have as family and what you have as business. That will bring a lot of clarity to you when you conduct yourself, when you start working or continuing the work which has been done by your family members. Second is that you should be open to the fact that every person who's involved in the business, supposing your uncles and aunts or brothers and all those people are also involved, there could be a chance that everybody obviously will not think alike, and some of them may not be as professional or qualified as you are. So you need to accept that it can happen that there will be some sense of what you think is not a smart thing to do or a smart activity to do. So you should not jump, as particularly when you're joining stage, you should never start making judgments before you understand what actually is happening, what is the past. I will say the other common mistake, most of the, particularly either the young or I would not generalize, but people who come and join, is whatever they know from their academic experience or academic knowledge or whatever they've read, you want to implement it from day one, right? You heard something, you read something in your college, you think everything that you read can directly be applied in your family business just because it is your family business, just because there is no barrier for you to talk about it. So I think you should avoid that, and so you should also accept that there will be people of different calibers, and do your wait and watch game in communicating what is relevant at the right time. Otherwise, particularly in widely held family setups, there can be small groups, subgroups, which can lead to a lot of inter-talk, which can create a problem. I don't know how many of the young students here have businesses which are running in the family. Business need not be large companies. It can be a trading setup. It can be a small retail shop. It can be a jewelry shop. So many things are there as part of family business. Everything is business. So don't try to go and implement, for example, the fancy software which is not relevant to the business, but you say, we should have a software in the enterprise and buy something and force something to be done for the sake of it. When you go into the family business, be clear as to what value you will bring to them. That means what is your unique thing that you want to contribute, or you want them to feel that you are contributing. That's very important. So see and discuss with somebody senior, the senior member of the family, and see, this is what I would like to do. This is what I feel I can be part of that particular business. So whether it is any kind of business, make sure that your value addition to the business is clear to you, our expectation from you is also clear from the.
जहाँ पे उसके नीचे same रहेगा. Sure sir. And if you cut that out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been some. I don't know where I stopped. So I only said that make sure that your expectations from the people who manage the business are clear, and you also go with the very clear expectations on what you can contribute. And wherever possible, try to formalize the relationship. What is your role in that needs to be formalized. Some of you are in commerce, so you know what kind of company structures are there. So if it's a partnership firm, if it's a proprietary firm, if it's a private limited company or a limited public limited company, see and understand what your formal arrangement is it, or you're going to be an employee. I know many companies where family run companies where people are also family members, but they are employees. You can get a proper salary from the organization. So make sure you clearly know what you are, and therefore also avoid disputes which can come, or wrong expectations which can come. So I would say anyone, and I would definitely welcome many of the entrepreneurs here to create enterprises which can take care of the aspirations of their family members also. So I hope Sanjiti, this to some extent answers your question.
Yes, sir.
Great. So Sanjiti, one day you may want to start a cricket academy, right?
Yes, sir.
Some years from now, at that point of time, and if your family wants to join it, remember your family member should be as good in cricket as much as you are.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So over to the next question. Deepa, your question comes to Vivek.
Yes. So how to get a funding for a business?
Sorry, I was talking on the mute. So sorry for that. So I'll answer the first question and second question continuously. So first is, most entrepreneurs feel that funding is the most toughest. And let me explain you, funding is tough, but it's not tough if you do the right way. So what is the right way? If you have an idea which solves the problem of a customer, which is very critical problem for the customer and who's willing to pay. And if you have business model, that paying capability is business model. I'll explain business model also very easy in a different way so that you can understand. And then funding is not a problem. The funding becomes problematic when you don't have a good business model. So example, I was mentoring a company which was basically kind of into the business of creating 3D science labs for their students. So 11th, 12th standard student, though a lot of colleges didn't have labs set up, so they couldn't do experiments for science. So they had a 3D lab where you could actually go into the computer and even create a pendulum experiment, the harmonic oscillation, the resonance experiments, and make sure that all the experiments are done 3D. You can take the recording as you're doing in the real in the lab, and that was a great product to have. But they had 3 customers. They had a customer which could be coaching classes. We are teaching science to the students, 11th and 12th standard. Second, student themselves. Third, schools. And fourth, parents. And if you have a business model and then right business model, then funding is not a problem. So their business model was, we'll go to the coaching classes and coaching classes will buy that tool and they will give it to the students. But the problem was coaching classes are much experienced and much more negotiable. So what they will do, they will actually say, I will buy it for myself. I'll use this tool to teach my students. So business model is you give one license to the coaching class, but some higher value, but they will not pay too much value. Then you have to sell business to each coaching class is not easy. If you go to student, you have to convince 2 people, parents as well as students. Parents pay the money. Finally, and that was becoming difficult. They used to go to coaching class, they go to school. The school administration will stop them from communicating to students because you have to go to the students and market to students. So finally, the business model came. Can we give it to the existing smart classroom companies who are actually selling it and telling them that this is a 3D which you don't have, you can sell it. And that worked very well. The Tata Trust, which is into kind of thousands of 10,000 schools, it talked to them and they liked this model of putting this in the 3D. And they paid the money for acquiring that license for schools, 10,000 schools. The business model was Tata Trust gets this license, puts it in 10,000 schools, and per school they pay the money to the company. That immediately made company kind of a fundable, and many investors came and funding happened. So it's important that you have to start looking at what this business model will work. So I'll give one more example of business model. Now this farmers have a soil problem. If they don't test the soil, they don't know NPK values, which phosphate, urea or potassium, which one has to be put more, which has to be less. If they put everything more, it's not going to give them more returns because the soil will become saline and it will not produce anything. So they have to get this testing done. Now there's a company who did the machine for soil testing, but no farmer will buy it because farmer needs soil testing once in a while, right? So how will you make this? So they found a business model which is very workable. It's farmer producer organization. There are farmers collectives where 1,000, 5,000 farmers come together and create a farmer producer organization. And the government gives them grants to help farmers to improve technology, improve their productivity. So FPOs, they went to FPOs. FPOs bought the machines, and those machines were given to the farmers to test the soil. So the one person from FPO will go to the farmer and test the soil, and he will get the service cost from the farmer. Then part of the service cost will be his salary. Part of that service cost will go towards the paying of the machine capex. And that business model, now they have sold 100 machines to FPOs and only maybe few machines to the labs, but no farmer will buy it because farmers don't need it for 100%. So it is important that even if your customer is X, if that X cannot pay it, you have to find a business model where you can pay. And once business model is there, every investor wants to grab you. They will say, you are going to make my revenue. There's a revenue model is there. If the revenue model is there, I would like to make money. So I will invest in this company. Company values more and thereby. Now the question is, what kind of funding you start with? Nobody will fund you in the beginning without the product. But you need a product before somebody can fund it. So first funding has to be friends and family. You have to have your own fund, your friends, your family, and they invest in you, and they will invest only when they feel that you are dependable person, you are very passionate about creating a company, and you will value their money and will not waste the money, right? So unless you have friends and family funding you in the beginning, till you make a product which is small proof of concept and show that it is your idea is working, it is business viable, then others will come in. 99% of time, friends and family first seed fund is required, angel investor first fund is required. After that, only real fund will come. So you have to have your character of person who is hardworking, who is passionate about something, who is going to problem solving ability, and who will actually respect commitment to people and respect other people's time and money. Then people will fund you. So first fund has to be family, friends, and then comes angel investor, and then comes the venture capitalist fund, which will scale your company. What kind of startups can be launched with limited financial investment? I think most of the startups can be launched with limited investment. You have to create an idea, find a solution which is solving the problem very critically. That problem has to be very important for the customer. Solution should be unique, not copy paste from somebody else. If it's unique, differently solving the problem, then get the first family, friends funding, and you will be there. I can trust you. When I started my company, I started at very late age. I started at 43 when I came back from US. But that time I had kind of 6 friends. standing there with kind of willing to spend 10, 20 lakhs and fund that company so that we can take company to big number. And we made it actually. We got a company funded. Maybe funding was maybe less than 1 crore, but company got valued in 10 years to 200 plus crore. So they all got good returns, and it was a good success for everybody. So limited financial investment. You start your ideation. You start your unique solution by solving the problem. Unique solution for solving the problem, and then start talking to your friends, families, and trust me. If idea is good, you will get small fund to create a product. And once your product is workable on the ground, you go to the angel investor. There are many angel investors. There are many incubation centers across India now, which government has started, private companies have started. Look for internet, apply for your contest. Different hackathon contests are there, startup contests are there, and you will get funded because government is now funding for developing product. There is a Sarl Prayas, Nidhi Prayas scheme where they fund up to 25 lakhs for creating a product for you. So you in India now, you don't have to worry about funding for creating a product. You just have to have a passion about solving a problem, identify right problem to solve, critical problem to solve, identify the customer, see what is his willingness to pay. And with that amount, are you able to create a product? If you are able to create a product, create idea, unique solution, talk to your friends, families, get some support. If you don't get fine, there are incubation companies. There are many incubation companies in India who are giving funding for creating product, and government is giving this as a grant free based on selection process. And take the grant, create a product, and then I'm sure you'll get a lot more funding going forward.
Thank you, Vivek. I think you have a short time and extremely
sure. And thank you for the opportunity. It was great. Students, Deepa, and Burhan, others. Thank you, and thank you for you guys.
Sir, I will request everybody to come on video, sir. We just want a small photo with you, a screenshot, and then you can leave, sir. Vivek, sir?
Yes,
yes. Yes, sir. On the count of 3, everybody please smile. Yes. 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and 3. Thank you so much. Thank you, Vivek, sir. It was a pleasure having you. Thank you for answering all the questions.
Thank you.
And before we sign off, last final question we asked by Rajgopal. I know it's well beyond time, but each of those questions asked have a passion behind it to find answers. And I hope, Rajgopal, you will help them get the answer.
No problem.
What is Sanjeevi?
Yeah. So what are the mistakes to avoid while doing an internship, corporate job, or running a business? And how should a student deal with failure at studies, job, or business?
Okay, so I think I will take the first thing is the second point. You know, avoiding mistakes is one thing, but sometimes failures do happen. So we all in our life end up having some kind of an experience of having failed at something, whether it is studies, job, maybe in your case, it is yet to happen, job or business. Let me say, when it comes to failures, I think it's very important to accept that there is something which has failed. So very often people tend to not to accept and also keep on talking about why me, a failure, why me? If I have scored, 20% less or 40% less marks, why me? Why not somebody else? Or why this? Why me? Feeling should not be there. First, learn to accept. So if the acceptance is there, then the solution also will start flowing. Because world is very big. Please remember, students, that world is really big. Time is long for all of you. You have a long life ahead. So opportunities and ways will always keep knocking you. You'll never have, particularly in India. India is a very large country. There are huge avenues which are opening up, huge things. So academic failures should not pull you down. Opportunities will come. Maybe for some people it will come immediately. Some people may take a little time, but I think you should always remain hopeful. So if you face failures, you must be first and foremost learn to accept it and infuse confidence in the people who are with you. If you walk around with a sullen face, if you are showing the face, if you're unhappy, it will also affect the people around you. And therefore, it's very important not to let that out into a bigger problem. So you know yourself very well. And as my panelist said, that you should learn to also accept that you have not given your very best. So if you accept that, if you understand that, definitely you will overcome, whether it is in your studies. When it comes to job, I think the very important thing is to not to end up covering up the mistake. If you have failed, very often people have a tendency to cover up and somehow hush temporarily. So that's a very bad approach to handling failures. So it's very important that you be honest and open up and say, yes, it has happened. So whether it is your, you all, it may be joining some companies very soon, you will definitely have some superior or a boss, as I would say. Do not allow them or anybody else to find out the failure. Maximum possible, if you are aware of it in job, try to be the first person to report it. It is always, it is a compounding problem. If someone else, including someone to whom you're reporting, finds it out. And then of course, if it's something that you did not know, that's a different thing. That is ignorance, that you did not know. But do not try to cover up a mistake or a failure and try to think that, somehow things will happen. Nobody will notice it. Definitely it will come back to you. So please always be learning to accept and also own that responsibility of that failure. So in particularly in job, in business, whether it is a small business or big business, I think transparency is very important. You must be honest with your customers. If there's a failure of a product or a service, you must be transparent with your customer and accept that there is a problem. Many customers or suppliers will always appreciate a setup where, yes, if it's a problem, if they accept, and then you can choose to either replace the good or do the free service or pay the extra money to from your supplier. But if you are not transparent with them, then it becomes, again, as I said earlier, it will come back to you. So I would say in business, be transparent. Same thing applies to if you're running a business and you have employees, then you should also be transparent with your employees. So many of the times, customers or employees, they can collaborate with you to avoid the mistakes. If you are transparent with them, if you're honest, they will also give you suggestions on how it can be done. Many problems of many companies have been solved by customers. Many customers, that is why you find in many good, well-run companies, they have customers in panels. And they give suggestions on how to do, how to improve. It actually comes free of cost, but it adds a lot of value to the companies. So I would say these are the small tips. And as many times as possible, take your family to confidence. And I'm sure they will always have good things to say and encourage you whenever things go wrong. So I would say these are the small things in dealing with failures. Avoiding failures is something that obviously you have to learn from one mistake or the other, and be conscious of not repeating the mistakes. At the same time, don't become, what they say is once bitten, twice shy. Don't stop venturing yourself from doing your genuine bit. Many of the persons with one failure, then they stop going in that direction. I think you should believe in yourself, and therefore in avoiding mistakes, do not run away from them. Run away from the right thing to do. So that's the message I would say. Learn from the mistakes. Don't run away. There will always be issues in everything you do. You will have a tough lesson. You will have a tough question paper. You will have a tough interview. Doesn't mean that you're a failure. I'm not good in interviews. I always get rejected. It should not be there. Okay. I hope that answers you to some extent.
I think thanks a lot, Rajgopal. I think success and failures, as we know, are relative, are more of learning opportunities and failures, and success should never go to the head. So as long as you are grounded to the realities of the ground and you work towards finding and try to make yourself a better human being day by day, and that's all our quest in life is. So thanks a lot, Rajgopal, for being there with us, and regret that we had to extend it by a few minutes, but I think the students would benefit from it. So over to you, Munish, for the closing remarks.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much. I think this was a really amazing webinar. Thanks to Mr. Pawar, Vivek Pawar, sir, for enlightening us. I think you were very patient and you were very, very practical in whatever you shared with us for the students, Same way, Mr. Rajgopal, I think I would like to thank you, very interesting insights from business perspective, especially, that's being from a corporate to a business person, that's a journey which we have traveled. I think what all your answers had all those, experiences, clearly evident when you were speaking out to the students. I would like to thank the Principal Madam, Dr. Shobha, for allowing all the students to be here and you be there personally for this whole webinar. I would like to also thank Neeta Vaidya, the placement coordinator. I think you play a very important role, ma'am, because Student Banega Atmanirbhar campaign cannot be successful without your support. So we will be looking forward for your support. We will like to do college placement drives in your college month after month, every month, till every student becomes Atmanirbhar. So your help will be very much required. Students, Paul, Sanjiti, Deepa, and Buanuddin, I hope I spell his name right. Buanuddin, I think you all asked very good questions, very relevant questions. I think these questions probably you were basically representing the students, A lot of students, we have this capacity of 100 people, so 110 people were there. But a lot of people were watching this whole thing on Facebook, and this whole session will be uploaded on YouTube. What we have created a Jeevitam YouTube channel, wherein these sessions, all the students who have not been able to see it, they can go and look at all our 21 sessions, which has happened. This is the 21st webinar which is there. So you can look into, and you can, this will be seen by hundreds and thousands of people, students, forward it to, if you have liked whatever all the students who have participated in today, if you have loved what you have liked, what we have shared, share it with your friends. Let them also look at on the Facebook, on the YouTube. They can go through it out. This webinar is for you. And I think this is where, if you are successful, if you are able to find sustainable livelihood, the objective of these webinars and these sessions will be served. So a big thanks to you, Mr. Vivek Pawar, sir, and Rajgopal, sir, for coming there and enlightening us. And to the principal, ma'am, a big round of applause to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All the best.
Thank you.
All the best to students. Sanjiti, Deepa, and
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, Principal Madam.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am, for patiently listening, and looking forward to collaborating with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, students. Sanjeeti, you've been very active. Thank you for being very prompt in your response. And thank you, Mr. Burwadin. Sorry. Okay,
Thank you
bye.
so much.